He's a real nowhere man, sitting in his nowhere land, making all his nowhere plans for nobody.
If a Canadian leader goes to a world summit, does anyone notice? Hi, I'm Brian Lilly, political columnist with the Toronto Sun, joined by fellow columnist Warren Kinsella. And Warren, this is a real question for Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and the Canadian contingent, because they were at the G20, then they're at the COP summit in Glasgow. And does anybody notice? I dubbed him in one of my columns the nowhere man, because no one's paying attention to Canada. No one's paying attention to Trudeau. And unlike past PMs like Harper, Chrétien, Mulroney, no one's seeking out his opinion because they don't really seem to care.
And I just want to say you've wrecked for me a perfectly good Beatles song by now associating it forevermore with Justin Trudeau. But it fits. You know, if you look at the coverage of what took place at that international meeting, it's one of the biggest international meetings you could have. Trudeau just wasn't a factor. You know, a picture moved of him, his socks, and there were some pictures of him having drinks, but, you know, he didn't show up for certain encounters with the media, and he certainly didn't show up in any of the international coverage. I think it is, as you say, Canada is now, you know, not playing at the weight that it used to under Harper and Chrétien and even Martin. This guy, I don't think is as respected as an international leader as those prime ministers were.
On the weekend, the only international coverage I could find, there's lots of Canadian coverage, of course, but, you know, at these world summits, it's often a chance for whoever is prime minister to tell Canada's story. And the only story being told was that Justin Trudeau showed up late for the family photo with Boris Johnson. There have been photos of him out drinking in The Hague. You know, he's got no mask on. He's all around. The official photos, all with the mask. And then he's in the bar, backslapping people, walking through the streets, carrying a bottle of wine with the Dutch PM. All of these things are going on. And people are saying, what are you? Or he's buying cards for his kids in Rome. That's great. But are you actually doing anything for the country while you're there?
And also, you know, just it may seem minor to some people, but, you know, for me, it isn't. Setting a good example. You know, this is the guy who lectured Aaron O'Toole for 36 days during the election campaign about, you know, how to conduct yourself during a pandemic and getting vaccinated and being careful and all that stuff, and wagging his finger at O'Toole. And then at the first international meeting of significance that he attends, he's, as you point out, you know, kind of swanning around town without a mask on and doing precisely the kinds of things that he always tells us not to do. And it, you know, it's symptomatic of this government. You know, do as I say, but not as I do. And you know, it's pretty disappointing coming from the Canadian Prime Minister.
Let me ask you about leaders having bilaterals and getting together. So you're at these international summits. At a certain point, everyone's around the table together, but there's also one-on-one meetings. And given what Canada's facing with this threat to our auto industry, the US wants to bring in hugely protectionist measures that will help kill off Canada's auto industry. He should be having FaceTime with Joe Biden. He hasn't had a meeting with the US president yet. Instead, he's in Glasgow meeting with Michael Bloomberg. You know, Bloomberg is former mayor of New York. He ran for the Democratic Party presidential nomination, but couldn't get it. He's not really an active player, but this is who they're touting. Hey, look, we got a bilat with Michael Bloomberg. Does he not care? Does he not have the hat? Like, what's going on with things like this?
It is a big concern. It's a big worry, you know, and I say that as somebody who, as you know, volunteered for Biden. Biden has, you know, just about a year into his mandate, is revealing himself to be somebody who is, if not hostile towards Canadian interests, completely disinterested in them. You know, what are the reasons for that? I don't think, if you look at Biden's career, he's been pretty pro-Canada and Canada friendly for the entirety of his political career, which is a long one. What I think has changed is Trudeau. You know, Trudeau with Biden, but Trudeau with so many other international leaders, they just don't hold him in the same regard that they did Chrétien and Harper, or even, Justin's father. Trudeau is not at that level. I think the international community, the international leadership realize that, but regrettably, Canada is suffering for it, as you pointed out in the pages of the Sun. Our auto industry needs those jobs, and Trudeau is just not stepping up to deliver.
It's not just the international leaders that seem to be writing him off, Warren. It's an awful lot of Canadians as well. The man used to be well loved. Scroll through his Twitter feed, and other than the Trudeau liberals, not a lot of love there for Prime Minister Trudeau. Let us know what you think. Drop a comment down below, share this on social media, and of course, subscribe to our channel.